For this task, I'm actually going to start off with the heading and a statement generator. I'm going to recycle some code from Project Zero, and I've decided to use our first trial because throughout this project, I'm only going to have single line headings. To quickly recycle a project, I've gone into Project Zero and I've gone to the make statement component. I'm going to tap F5 and then tap on the three dots so that we can change the folder to MMF, and then I'll push OK. I can then edit the statement and the decoration, which I took straight from my test plan. And of course, when I run that code, it worked as expected. And if this was an assessment, you would, of course, update your documentation showing that you now have an instructions heading. You'll also want to include a trialing slide where you make it clear which trial you've chosen and why, and you should also make notes if you edit or change a trial to customize it for your project. As I was creating my heading with emoji, I remembered that in Project Zero, when we printed our output, the emoji didn't survive that process, which might mean that when we write to a text file, emoji won't work either. We're not ready to check that just yet, but I've added it to my planning so that I remember to trial this and see whether or not emoji can be written to a text file. Our next step is to recycle our yes/no cash credit component from Project Zero. Please pause this video and see if you can do this for yourself. Here's a quick reminder of how you might do it. I've gone to the version of the string checker that I want, and I've actually changed the name to component 2 because in MMF this is the second component I'm working on, and I've made sure that I'm saving it in the correct directory. And one of the things I wanted to do was change it so it defaults to yes, no. And when I put that in as a list, PyCharm actually says that's a slight problem. So instead of using a list, what we're going to do is we're going to use a tuple instead. Tuples and lists are similar, but they have some important differences. The short version is that using a tuple for this case is the best option. As my valid answers are no longer in the form of a list, I've changed it so that it reads valid answers. In the main routine, we can remove the yes/no list. We also use if they want instructions. We simply put in the question because we're defaulting to valid answers and to one letter. For the payment method, we can leave the function call as is, but rather than having a list, we'll want to change that to a tuple as well so that we're nice and consistent. And a quick run through of the program shows that it works for both yes and no and cash and credit. And if this was an assessment, you would want to comprehensively test the component. And an easy way to do that is to put it inside a loop, comment out the code that you don't need, and then follow your test plan exactly. Remembering, of course, to document your testing and then to update your code on GitHub. And as you can see, I have recycled my trialing slide. And in this case, I've made a note on trial 4 that we did change our list into a tuple so that we don't have that PEP8 error. As this video is getting a little bit long, we're going to complete our instructions component in the next video.